My internship didn't quite follow the traditional format of plan research. So I'm just more going to tell you what I've been doing for the past 10 weeks. So my internship was environmental interpretation at Yacona Nature Preserve and Learning Center. First off, background, what is Yacona? Where is Yacona? Where is Yacona? Yacona is just about 6 minutes away from here. This is Hatfield. If you drive down this way, past Oregon Coast Community College, there's a gate, and then you can drive up a few trails all the way out to Yacona in this area. And then what is Yacona? It is two entities as of now. They're working on merging together in the next few years, but it's Yacona Nature Preserve, which is a private operating foundation, which is the lands and the facilities of Yacona, as well as Yacona Learning Center, which is the public charity. It's the education and the outreach aspect. It was founded by Bill and Joanne Barton, with their first purchase of the land being made in 2013, about 77 acres, and now encompasses about 340 acres of land and is expanding. Some history of Yacona because it's important for the perspective of what Yacona is and how the lands are managed and how they are today. Yacona is named after the Yacona people, who were the original people of this land, who lived here since time immemorial. By 1849, European diseases as well as colonial-led massacres took the population, which was estimated to be about 700 people at one point in time, down to about 80 people, which is today of just one family that we know of can commonly trace their ancestry back to the Yacona people. Following the Yacona stay at Yacona in this area, the Celeste Reservation was formed in 1855 by the United States of America, where they forced indigenous people from all over Washington and Oregon onto the Celeste Reservation, and start off as 1.1 million acres of land, over 100 million or over 100 miles of coastal land, to then take away that land in 1865 when they took that land away from the Yacona people and forced them to move northwards towards Siletz, only to then again take away more land during 1875 from the other reservation lands and force more people to move onto the area of the Siletz, only for eventually that land to be taken away and dwindled more and more, but that's a different story. I indulge you to learn more about. Yacona's website is a great resource to learn more about that, but the Yacona people were forced out of this land, which is a very unfortunate thing. Moving on to Europeans in Yacona in 1866, a settlement named Newport was found, where we are, shocker, whoa. By 1870, the logging industry had brought commerce to the area, and that logging industry is very responsible for what shaped Yacona today, as well as just the ecosystem we are in general. In 1882, Yacona City was founded, which is now Sawyer's Landing, just across the bay from Yacona. And West Yacona was established on the peninsula where Yacona now lays, which was a rich neighborhood, essentially, where wealthy land investors and people who invested in the railroad of Yacona City could have land and live their lives. So once again, going back to that image, this would be what is modern today, what was Yacona City and was modern today Sawyer Landing. And this is where West Yacona would be with all those land allotments as well as just plots and where the rich people lived. So going into World War I and the early 20th century, the US joined World War I, and the Sitka spruce was great for building early aircraft. So a lot of it, more of it was logged, causing more, deforestation and just clear cut and used for aircraft manufacturing. In around 1934, the railroad started to decline as truck logging came onto the scene, and the use for the railroad was outdated, and as such, they started to be bought up by private individuals and private industry. As it was dismantled, and slowly Yacona City became a ghost town, as well as West Yacona following that, or preceding that. The history on that is foggy. What is left of West Yacona today is 3 wells out there in the Yacona Nature Preserve, all of which are also dry, which could lead to more speculation of why West Yacona didn't last, as well as just some artifacts such as the sink and bottles, bricks that we find out there every once in a while. A lot of the buildings are long gone just to wear and tear, weather, as well as looters coming across There's a whole story about someone falling in the well. That's, once again, I think for another time, though. So coming up more to recent history of purchasing the land, logging was continued in the 1970s as early and into as early as 2011 within the Yaquina Peninsula. Privately owned parcels of land left from West Yaquina, though, allowed for very large areas of that land in the peninsula to be left to develop into old growth forest and be untouched by the logging industry for just generations longer than other areas in this area. The Barton family learned of this peninsula and its rich history in 2008, and they made their first purchase in 2013, some of which was logged as recently as 2 years ago. That first purchase was this area, which came with a land easement, which allowed them to go out into the peninsula, which, unlike those people with plots in West Yaquina, they did not have. So that's why that land was untouched and undeveloped for so long. Today, this has been replanted and with native plants, native shrubs, native trees. But this is a good picture of what some of that clear cut and plantation land looks like today in comparison to the old growth land that was not touched or logged and allowed to grow and prosper. There's a lot more underbrush and a lot more plant diversity. You can see in the ferns and the mosses and as well as the woodier shrubs compared to just the lack of such in the plantation areas. Then coming up to today, modern day, from the founding today, Yaquina Nature Preserve encompasses now over 340 acres of land. Substantial improvements have been made to the area, including 4 bridges, over 7 miles of hiking trails, and 47 acres of clear cut, which, as I said, has been replanted and revitalized. Public access is granted to the land by escort. As of now, it's not, no one can just walk into the preserve. You have to reserve a hiking day or come out there for one of Yaquina's events to be able to access the land, but it is really meant for the community, and you can visit their website for more details on that. So Yaquina's beliefs, Yaquina's vision and their mission. Their vision is to honor the past and secure the future by inspiring the present through partnerships in education, stewardship, and prevention. As well as their mission, they describe themselves as Yaquina Nature Preserve and Learning Center is a living laboratory that serves to protect, preserve, and enhance the natural ecosystems and cultural history of Oregon's central spruce habitat and its wildlife through the arts, education, and stewardship. What that all means and what that leads into, what Yaquina does. Why did it go back? Fantastic. Yaquina's outreach and community engagements, that includes interpretive hikes for all ages, covering much of the history that I just told you previously, as well as educational opportunities for students and youth. A lot of the things I was involved in this summer, in environmental monitoring and data collection, as well as summer internships such as me, Ethan, and Tobias were involved in. Or duties here this summer as interns. We had 3 STEM Hub interns, including Tobias and Ethan, and these lovely pictures I have of them. They knew that I was taking those pictures, not surprising them. We have 3 STEM Hub interns, though. Those 3, all local Newport residents, recent high school graduates, as well as me, OSU intern. We were engaged in habitat management and restoration, educational programs, and our own research projects. In my case, it was less of a research project, more brochure development, but I'll get into that later. Tobias's research project was green crab monitoring, if you're wondering why we have so many crab pictures. So habitat management and restoration, that involved invasive plant removal, such as tansy, bowl thistle, foxglove, and Himalayan blackberry, going in there along the trails with gloves and orienting ourselves with the preserve and its lands and getting used to all the trails, nooks, and crannies of the preserve while pulling invasive plants. And then weekly transect monitoring, that involved 2 trails of several miles each. One was the O'Grady Trail, one was the Montana Trail. Each one of those trails had 10 temperature monitoring systems and stations. Those were the Hobo meters. We use this app called Hobo Connect. I don't know, Hobo is just the brand, has nothing to do with the name. But we used this app to monitoring the temperature, and we sent them and collected the data, sent it off to Natalie, and they're compiling it for their own data set. We also worked on automating them this summer, so they are all now set to collect data at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on the dot, so that data collection can now be gained and developed from now on. Along these monitoring sites are also 7 plants for phenology monitoring, we are comparing, so each of these 7 plants is on each of these 2 trails, and we're comparing their change throughout the season. So if they have fruits, if they have new needles, new leaves, fruit drop, seed drop, cone drop, stuff like that. And we did that through iNaturalist, which is that little bird icon. Native plant restoration involved watering and monitoring native plants that we were hoping to plant in the preserve, or I will be gone from Yacona, but Yacona is helping to plant in the preserve once they're fully matured and ready to be out there. Coyote brush, ocean spray, and yarrow is all part of, they're all seedlings right now, and we're waiting, they're gonna have to overwinter, be planted next fall or on whatever timeline they're able to. The willow, the hooker willow and the Pacific willow, as well as the red osier dogwood and twinberry, those are part of a goal to reintroduce riparian habitat, or perhaps just introduce in general riparian habitat to the sloughs and waterways within Yacona to attract more beaver to the area and get that population going within the preserve. The other 3 being for native pollinators. As well as we were just monitoring previous plantings, such as this hazel bush and some willows down in the slough, to just monitor how they're doing, if they're still alive. One of the interns, I wasn't involved in this, but they worked on putting cages around several of them so the elk and the deer wouldn't be munching on them, because that's not good for a baby plant. So getting to the education program is what I'm here for, my whole internship thing. The education groups we had this summer were Oregon Sea Grant day camps. So kids from all over Oregon, or some as far as Arizona, Taiwan sometimes, really from all over, coming here to Newport to take day camps over to Hatfield Visitor Center. Those day camps are 3 to 4 days long, depending. And we're just one of their days. They describe us as students get the chance to be scientists out in the woods. So we are the woods. And then also Lincoln County School District Summer Learning Program, working with the local school district on their summer learning programs for middle school or whatever age group is coming out here. The curricula that we did for these summer learning programs and the summer education programs involved 4 brand new nature journals and lesson plans that we implemented this summer, written by our esteemed Natalie Schaefer. And the first one that we did was the power of water. We did this with 13 to 14-year-old students from Sea Grant, and we got to teach this one once just to availability and how many times they had that camping session going on. This one involved stuff such as hydrogen bonding, surface tension, adhesion, cohesion, as well as just buoyancy. And the students had the chance to make these makeshift boats using twine and cattail rails, cattail reeds, tying them together and see if they could float a rock down the slough. The next one that we had was with 11 to 12-year-olds. This was sustainable solutions, explaining the importance of wetlands and how they filter toxins out of the environment and how that all works, as well as talking about Sea Grant, as well as talking about microinvertebrates through a microscope, as well as macroinvertebrates and their importance in the ecosystem. We also showed them the crabs, which they like the crabs. The 8 to 10-year-olds, we taught this one twice as well. This was Water Wonders. We talked about the water cycle, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, runoff, all that, as well as transpiration. This image here models transpiration with how, modeling how water evaporates out of a plant throughout the day. And we wrapped a bag around a couple leaves in the morning, came back in the afternoon, and see how much water had evaporated out of that plant throughout the day. The last one was with Lincoln County School District, and we did this one with middle school students, once with 6th grade students, once with 7th and 8th grade students. This one was taught twice as well. Since these are local students actually living within Lincoln County, within this area, we focused more on local science topics that they could bring home, such as that monitoring of native plants, what they're noticing as they walk through the forest, that temperature monitoring that we did earlier, having them actually engage in that as well, and measuring the green crabs, seeing stuff as such as carapace width, sex of the crab, color, and monitoring and collecting that kind of data. Moving on from the education aspect, my individual research project, which wasn't research in my case, but was developing brochures. I was making professional brochures accessible to youth, but presented to audiences of all ages. This is the one I have most fleshed out, and I'll run you through the process of how I made that. First off, I collected and gathered information and photos for the brochure. This involved just listing out first off what the vision was for it. So we have our 4 conifers that we have out in the nature preserve, which includes Sitka spruce, western hemlock, Douglas fir, as well as western red cedar. And then I used the OSU Common Trees in the Pacific Northwest, a very conveniently made website for this purpose, to collect all the information and double check it regarding the needles, the cones, the bark, and just the information about the tree in general. Then we have photos provided to us all by our community arts and engagement manager, Rena Olson. This allowed us to, well, allowed me to not have to cite so many resources when crediting the photos, as well as just having very lovely photos to provide in this brochure. So this is a stolen from one of the panels I have for Sitka spruce. A saying that we say out in Yacona for the bark is that Sitka spruce has scales. It looks a lot like the scales of a reptile or a fish, or almost like a chip ready to pop off of the tree. The cones are very soft and also scale-like, and the tree has an unfriendly handshake, so to speak. Very pointy needles compared to a lot of conifers. That's a picture of a Sitka spruce. I did that for each of the 6 trees in the brochure and then compiled it into a 4-fold. So then I created an outline of the brochure with all the information and all of the photos. First sketched it up on paper, then without the photos, put on the information, and then just fill in more information and add more photos, and then finish. I can go over the details of this if someone wishes, but otherwise, trees. Also in development are 2 other brochures I'm hoping to have done by the end of this week, but they're just not quite as thoroughly fleshed out quite yet. And then thank you to all the people who helped me throughout this process: Sea Grant, Lincoln County School District, Yacona, Rena Olson Photography, as well as just all the people who raised money as well as provide information for me throughout this experience.